Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today we have a really interesting set of excerpts. They're all kind of centered around business and communication and success.
Yeah, and they're pretty diverse.
Right.
We have everything from the psychology of scarcity marketing, like you mentioned,
Right.
to the story about how Kodak missed out on the whole digital camera thing,
Yeah.
even though they invented it.
They're crazy, right?
Yeah, and then there's that wild story about Google almost being sold for just $2 million.
It's mind-boggling when you think about what Google is today,
I
right?
know. Makes you wonder what other almost was moments there were in history.
Right, like all those what-if decisions that shaped the business world as we know it.
Exactly. And those are the kinds of questions we'll be exploring today as we dive deep into these excerpts.
Okay, so to kick things off, I want to talk about this 1966 World Cup anecdote. It's a great example of how sometimes the simplest solutions are the most effective.
Absolutely. This story takes place during a quarterfinal match.
England versus Argentina, right? That's right. And the referee, Ken Aston, was having a real tough time communicating with the players.
Because of the language barrier, I imagine?
Exactly. It was causing all sorts of confusion and frustration on the field.
So what happened? How did they solve this problem?
Well, it's actually a pretty interesting story. Aston was driving home after the match,
Okay.
and as he stopped at a traffic light, it hit him.
What hit it?
The solution. He realized that everyone, no matter what language they speak, understands the concept of red meaning stop and yellow meaning caution.
Oh, that's brilliant. So the traffic light gave him the idea for the yellow and red card system in football.
Precisely. It was such a simple yet elegant solution to a complex problem, and it completely revolutionized the way the game is officiated.
Talk about a light bulb moment, right?
You could say that. And this whole idea of simplicity, I think, it resonates with that quote we have from Dr. Richard Cash about oral rehydration therapy. He said, it really is much harder to make something simple than it is to make it complicated.
I love that quote. It applies to so many things in life, don't you think?
Absolutely. From communication to problem solving to product design, the simplest approach is often the most effective.
It's so easy to get caught up in complexity, right? But sometimes taking a step back and stripping things down to the essentials can make all the difference.
Right. And sometimes the most powerful solutions are also the most elegant ones. And it's not just about dumbing things down.
Oh, definitely not.
It's about finding the most direct and impactful path to your goal.
Exactly. And, this whole idea of simplicity really ties in with this next excerpt, which is about the power of three. It's this ancient Chinese tale about Peng Kong and the emperor.
Oh, that's a fascinating story. It really illustrates how easily people can be influenced by popular opinion, even if it goes against their own better judgment.
So tell me about the story. What happened with Peng Kong and the emperor?
So Peng Kong was trying to demonstrate to the emperor the dangers of gossip and how easily people can be swayed by it.
Okay.
He used this analogy of a tiger supposedly appearing in the street.
Huh?
If one person claimed to see the tiger, the emperor would dismiss it as nonsense.
Right.
If two people claimed it, he might start to have doubts. But if three people said they saw a tiger, even with no evidence, the emperor would believe it.
Wow. It's like that game Telephone we played as kids where a message gets distorted as it's passed from person to person.
It's a great analogy. And that's the danger of what we sometimes call herd mentality. We tend to follow the crowd, even if it means ignoring our own instincts.
And sometimes that can lead us down the wrong path, right?
Absolutely. It's so crucial to think for ourselves, to question assumptions, and to challenge the status quo.
Because if everyone just blindly followed the crowd, we'd never see any progress or innovation, right?
Exactly. Think about someone like Greta Thunberg.
Oh, yeah, she's a perfect example.
Right. She dared to speak out against conventional wisdom on climate change and sparked a global movement. She didn't follow the crowd. She led the way.
It's inspiring to see someone so young have such a powerful impact.
It really is. And it shows that one person's courage to stand out and challenge the norm can make a world of difference.
It reminds me of a time when, it's like sometimes you need to have the courage to be the lone voice in the wilderness, even if it feels uncomfortable.
Absolutely. It's about trusting your gut and being willing to speak your truth, even if it goes against the popular narrative.
Exactly. Okay, so moving on, there's another excerpt here that I think is particularly relevant to our discussion on communication. It's the anecdote about the British brigadier and the American general during the Korean War.
Oh, that's a powerful story. It really highlights how, even when we think we're speaking the same language, misinterpretations can happen.
And with dire consequences in this case.
Yeah. It's a sobering reminder that communication is so much more than just words.
So remind me about this story. It's the one where the brigadier is in a tough spot, right?
Right, he's facing a really difficult situation, and he reports back to the American general saying, "Things are a bit sticky, sir."
A bit sticky, meaning things aren't going well.
Exactly. But the general, not being familiar with British slang, completely misinterpreted the phrase.
He thought things were actually under control.
Yeah, he took it to mean that the situation was manageable. As a result, reinforcements were delayed, and it led to a tragic outcome.
Wow, that's a stark reminder that even subtle differences in language or cultural context can have a huge impact on how a message is received.
It really underscores the point that in communication, it's not enough to just express yourself correctly. You need to make sure you're being heard correctly, too.
Think a two-way street, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We need to be mindful not only of how we encode our message, but also how it's being decoded by the other person.
We need to check for understanding, clarify when needed, and be aware of those potential blind spots that can lead to misinterpretations.
Absolutely. And this brings to mind the next excerpt about the milkman in Dublin and his green horse.
Oh, yeah. That story's a classic. It's hilarious, and it also ties in nicely with this whole communication theme.
Right. It's a brilliant example of how indirect communication or even implied communication can sometimes be more effective than a direct approach.
So, refresh my memory. What was the deal with the milkman and the green horse?
Okay, so the milkman goes to the pub and leaves his horse tied up outside.
Uh-huh.
While he's inside, a mischievous giant comes along and paints the horse bright green.
Oh, I remember that part. So the milkman comes out and sees his green horse. What does he do?
You might expect him to confront the giant, right? But he doesn't. He goes back into the pub and announces in a loud voice, "The first coat's dry."
Oh, that's clever. It's like he's implying that there's more green paint to come.
Exactly. And that's what scares the giant away. The giant, thinking the milkman is about to paint the horse even more outrageously, decides to flee the scene.
I love that story. It's like a psychological power play. But how does this relate to business or communication?
Well, it illustrates a concept called scarcity marketing.
Oh, right. It's that idea that when something is perceived as scarce or limited, it becomes more desirable.
Exactly. The milkman, by implying that the green paint was in abundance, created a sense of urgency and scarcity in the giant's mind.
It's like those limited time offers you see everywhere, right?
Precisely. Those tactics trigger our fear of missing out, making us more likely to take action.
I never thought about it that way, but it makes total sense. It's like a psychological nudge to make us buy things.
Exactly. It's about understanding the psychology of persuasion and how it can be used ethically in marketing and communication.
So it's about finding that balance between persuasion and manipulation.
That's right. And that's something we should all be aware of as both consumers and communicators. We need to recognize those tactics and make conscious choices based on our own needs and values.
Speaking of making choices, there's another excerpt here that I found really interesting. It talks about the difference between lifestyle and growth businesses.
Oh, that's a great distinction. And I think it's particularly relevant for anyone who's thinking about starting their own venture.
Because it forces you to think about your priorities, right? Like what kind of lifestyle you want to create for yourself versus building a massive empire.
Exactly. A lifestyle business is all about freedom, flexibility, and creating a work-life balance that aligns with your personal values.
Like the travel blogger mentioned in the excerpt.
Right. They get to travel the world, share their experiences, and make a living doing what they love.
That sounds pretty idyllic, doesn't it?
It does have its appeal, for sure. But a lifestyle business might not necessarily have aspirations to become the next Amazon or Google.
Right. It's more about creating a sustainable income and a fulfilling lifestyle.
Exactly. And that's perfectly fine. It's about choosing the path that aligns with your personal definition of success.
But then you have growth businesses,
Right.
which are all about, well, growth.
Exactly. They're laser focused on expansion, market dominance, and achieving significant scale.
Think Amazon, Google, Facebook.
Right. Those companies started with ambitious visions and just kept pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
It's fascinating to see how these companies have disrupted entire industries, right?
Absolutely. And it takes a certain kind of mindset to lead a growth business. You need a high tolerance for risk, a relentless drive for innovation, and a team that's equally passionate about the vision.
It's a whole different ball game compared to a lifestyle business, right?
Yeah, the challenges and rewards are on a completely different scale. But ultimately, it comes down to what motivates you and what you want to achieve with your business.
I think it's a great question for anyone to ask themselves, whether they're an entrepreneur or not. Like, what are your North Star goals? What drives you? What kind of impact do you want to make?
Those are powerful questions. And speaking of making an impact, this next excerpt about Michael Dell and his customer-centric approach is a great example of how a simple shift in perspective can lead to significant success.
Oh, yeah, I love that story. It really highlights the importance of understanding your customers' needs and putting them at the forefront of your business.
It was a real game changer for Dell. Early on in the company's journey, Michael Dell asked his team, "What are we going to do in this company?" And one team member wrote on the whiteboard, "We are going to do two things. One, build computers, and two, sell computers."
Seems pretty straightforward, right? Build the product, then sell it. But that's not how Michael Dell saw it.
Exactly. Michael Dell immediately grabbed the marker and changed the order. He said, "We are still going to do two things. We first sell computers and then build them."
It's like he flipped the whole model on its head. Instead of building products and hoping they'd sell, he focused on understanding what customers actually wanted.
Right. It was a brilliant insight. It allowed them to build computers to order, reduce inventory costs, and deliver exactly what customers needed.
That's a great example of how listening to your customers can lead to innovation and a competitive advantage.
Absolutely. And it's a lesson that's relevant for any business, big or small. The more you understand your customers' needs and pain points, the better equipped you are to create products and services that truly resonate with them.
Speaking of innovation, this next excerpt about Thomas Edison and the light bulb is a classic story of perseverance and the power of belief. It's inspiring to think about how one invention, driven by a simple desire to bring light to the darkness, could have such a profound impact on the world.
It's a testament to the power of human ingenuity and the impact of a single transformative idea.
Right. The light bulb completely revolutionized how we live, work, and interact with the world, and it all started with a problem that needed solving.
Exactly. And that's what I find so inspiring about Edison's story. He didn't give up, even after countless failed attempts. He saw each setback not as a failure, but as a learning opportunity, a step closer to finding the solution.
And that's a great lesson for all of us, right? Whether we're facing challenges in our personal lives or our professional endeavors, it's important to remember that setbacks are inevitable, but they don't have to define us.
It's about having that resilience, that grit, and that unwavering belief in yourself and your vision.
Speaking of belief, this next excerpt about word-of-mouth marketing is a great reminder that the most powerful form of marketing often comes from authentic customer experiences.
Absolutely. When people genuinely love a product or service, they can't help but tell others about it.
It's like that saying, actions speak louder than words. When people are truly satisfied with something, they become your best advocates.
Exactly. And that's something that no amount of advertising can replicate. It's the power of genuine enthusiasm and recommendation.
It makes me think about those times when I've been so impressed with something that I just had to tell everyone I know about it.
That's the kind of organic buzz that every business dreams of. And it all stems from creating something truly valuable and exceeding customer expectations.
It's about focusing on building genuine relationships with your customers, rather than just seeing them as transactions.
And that's a principle that applies to any kind of relationship, whether it's in business, in personal life, or in our communities.
It's about building trust, fostering connection, and creating value for the people around us.
Exactly. And that brings us to the next topic, which is the importance of teamwork in leadership.
Oh, yeah. There were some really insightful excerpts on this. One quote that stuck with me was, failing to address underperforming employees can actually lead to the loss of your top performers.
That's such a crucial point. And it might seem counterintuitive at first, but it makes perfect sense when you think about it.
Because it creates a sense of unfairness, right? Like, why should the high achievers put in the extra effort when others aren't being held to the same standard?
Precisely. It can breed resentment, lower morale, and ultimately damage the entire team dynamic.
It's like a domino effect, right?
Yeah.
One underperforming employee can drag down the whole team.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important for leaders to address these issues head on, even when it's uncomfortable.
So it's not about being a nice boss. It's about doing what's best for the team, even if it means making tough decisions.
Absolutely. True leaders have the courage to hold people accountable and to create a culture of excellence where everyone is challenged to do their best work.
It's about setting clear expectations, providing support and guidance, and recognizing and rewarding those who go above and beyond.
And sometimes it means letting go of those who aren't a good fit for the team, no matter how difficult that might be.
Because ultimately, it's about creating an environment where everyone can thrive and contribute their best work.
Exactly. And that leads us to the next excerpt which talks about the dangers of complacency and the importance of embracing change.
Oh, yeah, this one really resonated with me. It uses the analogy of a sports team that keeps losing because the coach refuses to change their game plan.
It's like they're stuck in their old ways, even though it's clearly not working.
It's like driving a car with a flat tire and refusing to stop and change it. You might keep going for a while, but eventually you're going to be stranded.
And that's what can happen to businesses, organizations, and even individuals when they become complacent. They resist change, cling to outdated methods, and eventually become irrelevant.
It's a reminder that the world is constantly evolving. And to stay ahead of the curve, we need to be adaptable, embrace new ideas, and continuously seek out ways to improve.
It's about challenging the status quo, questioning assumptions, and being willing to step outside our comfort zones.
And yeah, that can be uncomfortable at times, but it's often in those moments of discomfort that real growth and breakthroughs occur.
It's about embracing that fail-fast mentality, as we discussed earlier. It's about seeing setbacks not as failures, but as opportunities to learn, adapt, and ultimately achieve greater success.
And I think that's a great mindset to carry with us, both in our personal and professional lives.
It's about recognizing that change is inevitable and embracing it as an opportunity for growth and innovation.
And that brings us to the next excerpt, which is all about entrepreneurship and the journey of building something from scratch.
Oh, this one's a classic. It's a story about Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx, and how she built a billion-dollar empire from a simple idea.
And a pair of scissors and pantyhose.
Right. It's amazing to think that she saw a problem that so many women faced, and she just went for it. She didn't let the fact that she had no experience in the fashion industry hold her back.
And she faced so much rejection along the way.
She did. But she persevered, she believed in her product, and she ultimately created a global brand that's now synonymous with comfort and confidence.
Her story is a reminder that you don't need a fancy degree or a ton of money to succeed. Sometimes all you need is a great idea, a willingness to work hard, and the courage to keep going, even when things get tough.
It's about believing in yourself and your vision, even when others doubt you. And that brings us to the next excerpt, which talks about the importance of embracing silly ideas.
Oh, yeah. This one's a great reminder that innovation often comes from unexpected places.
Sometimes the most groundbreaking ideas start as silly thoughts or seemingly impossible concepts.
It's about giving ourselves permission to think outside the box, to be playful and experimental in our approach to problem solving.
It's like giving ourselves permission to be childlike in our curiosity and creativity. When we let go of those rigid, preconceived notions of what's possible, we open ourselves up to a world of new possibilities.
It makes me think of that famous Picasso quote, "Every child is an artist. The problem is how to remain an artist once he grows up." It's a reminder to tap into that sense of wonder and imagination that we all had as children.
And sometimes that means embracing ideas that might seem silly or unconventional at first glance. Remember, some of the most revolutionary inventions and ideas were initially met with skepticism and ridicule. The key is to not let those doubts stifle our creativity and to have the courage to pursue those ideas that spark our imagination.
So it's not just about coming up with ideas, it's also about how we present them and bring them to life. This next excerpt talks about the importance of performing our ideas, making them more engaging and impactful.
It's about going beyond simply stating the facts and figures and instead creating an experience that captivates the audience and leaves a lasting impression.
It makes me think about Steve Jobs and his legendary product launches. He didn't just stand there and read off a list of features. He created a spectacle, a show that drew people in and made them feel like they were part of something special.
Exactly. It's about storytelling. It's about creating an emotional connection, and it's about showcasing the value and the impact of your idea
Yeah.
in a way that resonates with your audience. In a world saturated with information, it's not enough to just have a good idea. You need to present it in a way that grabs people's attention and inspires them to take action.
It's like that saying, show, don't tell. Instead of just talking about your idea, find ways to demonstrate its value and impact. Make it tangible, make it real, make it something people can connect with on an emotional level.
And that ties into the next excerpt, which emphasizes the importance of involving the client in the creative process.
Yeah.
It's about making them feel like they're part of the journey, not just passive recipients of a finished product.
I think that's so crucial. When you collaborate with clients and make them feel invested in the process, they're more likely to be excited about the outcome. It builds trust and creates a sense of ownership, which ultimately leads to a stronger partnership.
Absolutely. It's about co-creation, communication, and transparency. When clients feel like they're part of the team, they're more likely to embrace the final product, even if it's not exactly what they initially envisioned.
It's like that saying, people support what they help create. The more involved clients are in the creative process, the more they'll feel a sense of ownership and pride in the final outcome.
It's about building a true partnership based on collaboration and mutual respect. And that's something that extends beyond just client relationships. It's applicable to any type of collaboration, whether it's in business and personal relationships or even in community projects.
Yeah. Thinking back on all these excerpts, there's one phrase that keeps echoing in my mind. You are the magic. It's such a powerful statement. It's a reminder that we all have the potential to create something extraordinary, to make a difference in the world, and to achieve our dreams.
It's about recognizing that we have the power within us to create our own realities and to shape our own destinies. It's about taking ownership of our lives and taking action towards our goals.
It's about believing in ourselves, embracing our unique talents and passions, and using them to make a positive impact. Whether it's starting a business, writing a book, leading a team, or simply making someone's day a little brighter, we all have the power to create something meaningful.
And that brings us to the final thought from these excerpts. The purpose of life is value. It's a simple but profound statement that really encapsulates everything we've been discussing.
It's a reminder that true fulfillment comes from creating value for ourselves and for others. It's about making a positive contribution to the world, whether it's big or small.
And that contribution, as we've seen from these excerpts, can take countless forms. It can be as grand as inventing a life-changing technology or as simple as offering a helping hand to someone in need.
The key is to find what resonates with you, to embrace your passions, and to use your unique talents and skills to make a difference in the world.
We hope this deep dive has sparked some new ideas, challenged your assumptions, and inspired you to take action towards your goals.
Remember, you are the magic. Go out there and create something amazing. And thank you for joining us on this journey.
You know, it's amazing how these seemingly unrelated excerpts kind of tie together, right? Like we've gone from the World Cup to green horses to light bulbs to you are the magic.
It's true. There are these common threads that run through it all, these core principles of success that seem to apply across different fields and different eras.
It's like there's this underlying wisdom that transcends time and context.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes exploring these excerpts so fascinating. They offer these timeless insights that we can apply to our own lives, no matter what our goals or aspirations might be. Okay, so speaking of timeless insights, this next excerpt about performing your ideas really resonated with me. It's about taking your ideas beyond just the concept stage and bringing them to life in a way that captivates your audience.
It's about going beyond the data and the facts and figures, and instead creating an experience that truly connects with people on an emotional level.
It makes me think about those legendary Steve Jobs product launches. It wasn't just about the specs of the new iPhone or the features of the latest Mac. It was a show.
Exactly. He understood the power of storytelling, of creating a narrative that draws people in and makes them feel like they're part of something bigger.
It wasn't just a product launch, it was an event.
It was. And that's what made it so effective. He understood that in a world saturated with information, you need to find a way to cut through the noise and really grab people's attention.
It's like that saying, show, don't tell. Instead of just talking about your idea, find a way to demonstrate its value, to make it tangible, to make it real for people.
Right. It's about creating an experience that people can connect with on an emotional level.
And that brings us to the next excerpt, which is about the importance of involving the client in the creative process.
Oh, that's a crucial one. It's about moving away from that traditional client-vendor relationship and instead creating a true partnership where both sides feel heard and valued.
It's about collaboration, communication, and transparency.
Exactly. When clients feel like they're part of the team, they're more likely to be invested in the outcome and to embrace the final product.
It's like that saying, people support what they help to create. The more involved clients are in the creative process, the more they'll feel a sense of ownership and pride in the final result.
It's about building those strong collaborative relationships that are built on trust and mutual respect.
And that's a principle that applies not just to client relationships, but to any kind of partnership, whether it's in business, in our personal lives, or even in our communities.
It's about recognizing the value of each individual's contribution and creating an environment where everyone feels empowered to share their ideas and to work together towards a common goal.
And thinking back on all these excerpts, there's one phrase that keeps coming back to me: you are the magic. It's such a powerful statement. It's a reminder that we all have this incredible potential within us, this ability to create, to innovate, to make a difference in the world.
It's about recognizing that we're not just passive bystanders in our own lives. We have the power to shape our own destinies, to create our own realities, to achieve our dreams.
It's about embracing our unique talents and passions and using them to make a positive impact.
And it doesn't have to be about grand gestures or changing the world in some monumental way. It can be about the small, everyday acts of kindness, the moments of connection, the contributions we make to our families, our communities, and the world around us.
It's about finding what lights us up, what makes us feel alive, and using that energy to create something meaningful, something that brings value to ourselves and to others.
And that brings us to the final thought from these excerpts. The purpose of life is value. It's a simple but profound statement that really encapsulates everything we've been discussing.
It's a reminder that true fulfillment comes not from accumulating possessions or chasing external validation, but from creating something of value, something that makes a positive difference in the world.
Whether it's building a business, creating art, raising a family, or simply making someone smile, it's about using our unique gifts and talents to contribute to something larger than ourselves.
And at the end of the day, that's what really matters, isn't it? It's about leaving the world a little bit better than we found it, making a positive impact, and creating something of lasting value.
And that's something we can all do in our own unique ways. We hope this deep dive has sparked some new ideas, challenged your assumptions, and inspired you to think about the value you want to create in the world.
Remember, you are the magic. Go out there and make it happen. And thanks for joining us on this journey. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.